How's everybody doing today? Happy Sunday. Let me check myself out on my phone and make sure I'm showing up. It's been a while. Whew, man, I am struggling today. I am tired. I got to get it together, man. Let's see. You saw it. Gonna talk a little bit, and I had this conversation a few times in different work statuses, contracting, staff augmentation is something I wouldn't say unique, but a lot of people probably never heard of it. So I decided to do staff augmentation. Something I've done. You've seen the thumbnail for 20 years. What's up, casual economist? Give me a one if you can hear me. I can put my phone down. so so yeah, a lot of people ask me like, and me and B2B talked about that before the billions contracting. What's the best contracts on site? Doing some job after that. Good luck, man. I'm always on Indeed looking around myself. So my go-to casual is Indeed. I get lazy once you get you get your curriculum vitae out there, aka resume, then you can just say apply, 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 right? So I don't have to re-upload mine. Some of the websites ask you to re-upload them, but usually you could just say apply. And two is they keep track of all the ones that you apply for on Indeed. So I think as of right now, Indeed is my go-to um, job site. I'm trying to figure out. This is a lot of people like LinkedIn. LinkedIn seems pretty cool, but like I said, right now, Indeed is my platform of choice, man. Seems to be like there's still a lot of jobs out there. That remote seems to be compressing a little bit, meaning I see more hybrid jobs than I do remote jobs. I'm just lucky enough now where the job I work is like 98% remote. I think they want us to come in the office maybe 2 days every 6 months or something, or day and a half every 6 months. So I think for me, I don't know if I'll go back to the office, man. I have to apologize to the millennials. I don't know if I'm ever going back to the office, man. Especially at my age, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to be CISO or anything anymore, man. I'm just trying to be a individual contributor, make my little money and go on home. So once again, we're going to talk about just staff augmentation and what does that mean for a company. That's usually what I do for a living is I used to work for small consulting companies. Then they had bigger clients, and I would actually just go to that client every day like I worked there. So that was great. When I was at DoD, I went there for 9 years. Most people thought I worked for DoD when I was doing because I was just one part of the staff. I would drive, everything was on site back then. I would drive in, they gave me a badge, they gave you a computer, and I look like one of the employees. My badge had red on it, but after a while, people would forget I would be a consultant. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. Did I staff all too long? Because I did staff augmentation at DoD for 10 years, and I did staff augmentation for the Indiana Department of Revenue for 10 years. So the pay was good, but a lot of times, especially for both of those agencies, DOD and a large state, if you work 10 years, you get a 10-year retirement. You get a 10-year pension, right? So, but I've made a lot more money than their regular staff, right? So there's a catch 22. So I don't know. Now, every now and then I think about going to DOD. Shout out to the doctor. He's I think he said he was a GS-13. So I actually got offered a GS-13 at DOD and I turned it down. And I forgot which level I was at, which this was a decent level, but I feel like when you work for DOD on staff, sometimes you get restricted. And two, when you get on there, man, climbing that pyramid on those large agencies are tough, right? So I don't know. I go back and forth. There'll probably be another video. How long should you stay at a consulting company or any company, right? I think Gabe talked a little bit about that. I think Tech G talked a little bit about that. I think Kev Tech and I think Keep It Techie, right? How long is too long, right, to stay at a company? you're not getting promoted, and I think Gabe talked about that. If you're not getting promoted, I think he was trying to get to a manager or director at his previous firm, and he wasn't getting to that level. So when is too long? When is it too long to stay at a position or a job, man? Right. So I just got to a certain point, and we talked about that before. Is when you're getting promoted, are you gonna go to manager or technical? Right. Usually the technical get caps out at a certain level. Then manager, you keep going to director. Especially if you work for a big company, they got senior directors, mid-level directors, VP of North America, and I work for some couple global companies, right? So for that management track, what track do you want to be at, right? I did 2 supervisory stints, and they went horrible. So sometimes I thought that I was like, I ain't never going into management, right? Because you got to babysit some people, and some people over me was cool with my boss, so I really couldn't direct them the way I wanted to direct them, but we could go in there if y'all want to touch on that. Just put it in the box. So let's look at this argument. Let's look at this article, and it compares it against the other contracting, like managed service. If you're on site as an FTE, so they actually take staff augmentation and compares it to those other type of employments too. So I really like that, and I think it's kind of a hidden gem. So let's get at it. And you know how we do it. Anything tech or cybersecurity, drop it in the box, and we'll touch on them, right? Seems like everybody getting hacked. If you had that file movement product, they get hacked every week. I'm sure they're getting sued by everybody. I think it was Move It was one of the names of it. People were white labeling it, but it was Move It. Man, they getting hacked every week. But once again, scale your IT workforce faster with staff augmentation. They do a 360-degree look. This is Turing. It's one of those things where you can and I'm thinking about doing that. We're going to talk about that later. Is win some work on Fiverr, Turing, Upworks, and let's just do it as a group on YouTube, right? There's enough talent on YouTube where we can bid on work, do and split the money. And 2 is hopefully we get some younger people on there so they can get some skills, so they can put some stuff on their resume. Let me know what you think. I've been saying that a couple of times. A lot of people like that idea, but it's kind of been going through my mind a little bit. But once again, let's hit that staff augmentation. In the area of cutting-edge technology, rapid evolution has become almost non-negotiable for companies to remain competitive constantly. The key is to catering to their high-tech needs of today's client. Still hard to swallow truth that this digital competitiveness is that organization needs elite development staff, right? It's not development. You need elite development staff, infrastructure, my specialty, cybersecurity. Because if you got an elite development staff and they're not doing security, right, all those apps are going to get hit. So you need elite in all those things, especially if you're trying to do a big global ad. Talk to TikTok, right? Talk to Facebook, used to get hacked every week, right? So those organizations, you need elite talent up and down your organization. And that's why a lot of people go to consultants to train your staff. You as a consultant is a SME at a subject matter expert at something. That's why you get paid, and that's why they bring that talent on, right? So my first SME duties is I was Oracle trained, so I did Oracle DBA work, and actually PL SQL was their backend procedures with Java, and they had this other product called Oracle Forms, which is like Java, but for a client server. But so I did that for 10 years for DoD, right? So that was a SME, but they brought me in as a consultant, right? Staff augmentation to train their staff and help their staff. They liked me so much. I had about 10 jobs in those 10 years for helping different agencies with inside DoD. That's one reason I stayed, because I kept learning. I kept working with some better consultants than me where I thought I was learning, right? But the weird thing is I thought I got the DoD, I got a 6-month job offer. And I interviewed, he said, "Oh, we're going to extend you." But I took it faith on 6 months. Then 10 years later, I was jumping ship to another one. They were still trying to get me to stay at DoD, and they offered me a government job. I could make 30% more in the private sector. So obviously I left. Now, I don't know if that was the smartest thing. Because like I said, after 10 years, I could have had a pension, right? I probably they got grades. I don't think I could have made it 14. 14 in the government is a high thing, but they got these steps. I think I could have been a 13, 10, and I think that's probably about 140 in the GS scale. I need to look that up. Let me see what my man Casual is kind of saying. People are going to ever try out the AI that applies for a job. I have not tried that. I guess for me, casual economist, I'm so specific because when I'm on Indeed, I never open up my resume to the public. The cool thing is Indeed has AI because when you first go in it shows you the jobs that you've been clicking on that match your resume. So I kind of use Indeed's AI to what they show me, right? Because they can say these are the things you clicked on, these are the things you've been posting your resume. So those are the only jobs they show me. So most of the jobs I see will be remote, cybersecurity, and I do more GRC, and I do a lot of IRS work. So when I go to Indeed casuals, those are the jobs that it show me. So those job sites have AI going through what you pick. I got his job. Oh man. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, you gotta be careful out here. Like I said, I was consulting and I thought I had a little longer. They laid me off like right after Christmas. I just was lucky I had some people that I already reached out to because I knew it was coming. So you smart, man. You got a lot of people don't see when it's coming and they get blindsided. I always tell people there's usually signs when it's coming, man. Let me know if there's anything you want to talk about casuals or if there's anything I can do for you. I know we're friends on LinkedIn. If you shoot me a message, if you need anything from me, just let me know, man. Once again, elite development teams to succeed need programming language and technology emerge in the tech space now. So how can you consistently possess a development team with the right composition and size to employ new technology and address present-day challenge if IT hiring is cumbersome and costly? If Stack Augmentation focuses on in-house team expansion by outsourcing and requiring talent, this helps a company to stay agile, averting the house of recruiting in-house talent, and especially for specialists or high-level talent are needed, right? And the cool thing is that specialist and highly needed talent, a lot of times you bring it in for 3, 6 months or a year, they get paid crazy amount of money, and you train their staff. Once again, when I was at DOD, I think I told the story. This was 2005. The Oracle guy bill rate was $350 an hour. Now he wasn't getting all of that, but I was like, wow. When I saw his bill rate, that was just like phenomenal. I mean, you talking about $700,000 for one dude. We talking about 2005. So guys were super special. Now he was the best DBA I ever seen, and I've seen a lot of DBAs. He was by far the best one. And this is the one I was worried about. How you can hire offshore developers or offshore anything. You can hire offshore AWS, offshore Azure guys, offshore infrastructure guys, PMO talent, right? So if you don't realize this, Oracle, AWS, and all those big companies, Deloitte, they got 20,000 people offshore that works for those companies. Sometimes they're subcontractors. Sometimes Oracle has, I think they had 20,000 developers in DBA offshore, right? So I always kind of, what does that do to your American talent, right? But so once again, we're going to talk about it here. And if you look, and we'll look at, I picked it because they talk down here, staff aug, what is managed services? Staff aug versus dedicated teams, full-time FTEs. Staff aug versus your offshore talent. Staff aug, you can just do time and material and let PBO do it for you. No, I'm just playing. But so we're going to break down each one of those job kind of responsibilities and how they play out. Once again, I did staff augmentation for 20 years. And for me, I just kind of went to the client. I felt like I worked for the client. I didn't even go to the consulting companies. They just direct deposit my money. So I enjoy staff aug, like I said, and I worked for some cool agencies, like I said, DOD. So again, for hiring, but lawsuits are there over time, AI building bias in race and gender. Nah, facts. And he's right. Most times now when you apply for a job, and everybody knows this, you got to get past the initial scan, which is AI. Do you have the qualifications they're looking for? Do you have the buzzwords, right? A lot of people just put buzzwords because they know they got to get past the scanners. And a lot of those scanners, like Engineering Canada says, are AI, right? They're looking for their buzzwords. But I tell people, and shout out to Black Heights, shout out to Textual Chatter, shout out to Women in Linuxes. 90% of jobs I ever got, I had those connections. The cool thing about DoD is when we kind of disbanded our project, and those guys spread out. So guys will call me. I'm cool with guys on LinkedIn. So when I'm looking for something, I'll be like, "Hey, what y'all got over there? Y'all hiring?" Or sometimes people reach out to me, like, "PBO, we hiring a security guy, GRC. You want to do it?" They know kind of what my money range is. So I probably would say 80% or 90% of the jobs I initially go, I got recommended by somebody in that organization. Right, but granted, I'm 55 now. I'm old, so I know a lot of people. But that's one reason you should connect. And we talked about remote jobs versus going in. I think Black Heights wants you to go in. Shout out to Black Heights. You can do that work. Like I do remote work, but I'll make sure I call a couple of people on my team every week. Right, we're gonna talk about a certain technology. We're gonna talk about a certain thing in work. I want to try to get to know those guys, and those guys get to know me. Right. Customers I work for, I like to reach out to them. And why do I do it? Because everybody knows this. If people like you, they'll let you slide if you make a mistake. If people don't like you and you make a mistake, they will try to bury you, right? So I want to make sure I reach out, even if it's Team, Zoom. Make sure you do. If you can't do that water cooler, at least make sure you just reach out, right? So you can be known in your organization. So what is staff augmentation? Like I said, somebody asked me this from a consulting role. I was talking about it. So I was like, let me do a quick video on it. Right. Staff augmentation means simply outsourcing workers for projects aligned with the organization's current staffing needs and objectives. For example, your company aims to develop a gaming app and you require 7 developers. However, your in-house development team only contains 4. Given that you want skilled developers with sound expertise to build a robust app, it may take at least a month or 2 to fill those gaps to hire 4 talented developers, delaying your project loss and depriving you of predicted revenue. However, using staff augmentation, you can easily hire 3 developers within a week, enabling quick project completion and product launch. Moreover, the augment staff is a cooperative model that usually involves outsourcing. Hence, once your app hits the market, you do not need to fire developers who worked on it. This will help you avoid legal hassle and documentation of full-time employment. Right? I think that's one thing Engineering Canada was talking about there with lawsuits, right? And a lot of times, too, in most companies now, especially big tech companies, they're going to make you go through a tech agency for 3 or 6 months because they want to try you out, so they don't have to worry about any of the legal hassles if they need to let you go, right? So anytime before I ever got hired, once again, I had to go through a temp service. You work for them, an agency. I think the last one I did was 9 months, right? Then once they like you, they try you out. They make sure you're a corporate fit. So then they hire you on, and they don't have to worry about legal hassles if you fired. If you don't work out, they just tell the consulting company or the contracting company you didn't work out, and they don't have to worry about any of that, right? The 2 is the staffing company. When you come out, right, they're gonna handle your benefits and all that. So the initial client they don't have to get involved with all of that. Shout out to John, right? And 2 is for them, they'll pay a little more money because they don't have to pay the benefits, right? So the 2 is a lot of big firms, you get education, 401k, RSUs, restricted stock units. They don't have to worry about any of that until they bring you on, right? So that way they get to try you out. And that's the new, I'd probably say that probably started happening about 15 years ago. So 1, they get to try you out. 2 is they're going to hire you, like they said, they're looking for a SME or somebody with a certain level of skill set, right? So they're going to bring you in staff aug, right? Then you got to play that big corporate game. Everybody likes you, right? So I was with one firm every once a week on Friday. We had to do a remote happy hour where you log on, it's after work, everybody sold their beverage, right? And just do small talk, right? So you got to master your small talk game, especially when you're young and you trying to climb the corporate ladder. PBO old, he ain't doing that no more. Let's look at the types of IT staff augmentation, commodity-based augmentation, skills-based, and highly skilled, right? Commodity, we call those body shops. Sometimes people are just looking for low-level labor. I got it. No disrespect, right? And skilled and highly skilled, right? So those are three different. Like, shout out to B2B, right? He was starting out, so he was commodity based. He said he got a bad contract. I don't think they were paying him overtime or something. I should have pinged him and told him to come through. So you got to be careful. I think engineering cannabis was on there. So you are in control of what contracts you accept, right? And what benefits you get, right? I'm old, so I got highly skilled augmentation. So you got to pay me a certain amount. I get right. So many vacation days. Even when I'm doing a contract, right, for a consulting company, which one of these are you going to be? The two, as you get older, right, you're going to go up the chain and hopefully you get to highly skilled, and that's where you want to be, right? That's where you be in the 7% of guys and make 100K. So that's where you want to be. Let's see. This system augmentation is risky due to loss of IP. Now, facts, man. Product will sometimes break and may take months to fix or rotate. No, that is shout out. I was just speaking about my man. But no, that is a good, and that's actually coming up in the article, Engineering Cannabis. So Mike, my man's always on there. So you're correct. But when I do step out, because I do it for the government, I had to get a security clearance, right? And even though I was doing it for a big Fortune 500 pharmaceutical, I had to do a background check and all that. But you're right. You do sign letters of intent concerning with IP loss, right? And two, if you're in IT and you're making that level, they assume, right, that the IP loss and the legacy knowledge of what that's going to be. So, but he's right. But to counter that, engineering cannabis, and you're 100% right, is I did 10 years of staff hog, right? They just kind of ran out of money. So I was there for 10 years, right? But two, hopefully, as part of what engineering cannabis says, your staff hog should be training your own staff to get them up to speed, right? And a lot of times engineering cannabis is correct. I'm teaching you Oracle, so you might not show me the top secret IP. My job is to get the young Oracle programmers up to a low level. Now I do cybersecurity and I do specifically IRS. So my job is to train you how to do an IRS audit so you can pass, right? And what's the security checks on there, right? Is that a CIS? How you do a POEM? How you do policies and procedures for that? So from what engineering cannabis says, a lot of times those top secret meetings where they have the top secret intellectual properties, he's right, especially your beginning staff they're not going to be in there, right? Your senior staff people are going to be in there. Your staff people is going to be helping your junior people build apps, set up your pipeline, set up your organization, setting up your databases so they can run at an optimal level. But again, depending on what your staff is, and engineering cannabis might be right. You might not do staff for machine learning and artificial intelligence because that IP is just too important a risk for staff all right. But if you train in junior people, right, it's gonna take them a while to get up to speed. So right, you could train in your speed versus your security, right? Engineering cannabis. So there's a trade-off on that. But yeah, that's actually coming up as a risk to staff out. But so let's talk about the commodity base. This type of augmentation primarily adds more staff to a business. It involves hiring employees who are not necessarily highly skilled, but can still perform a basic task required by business. Commodity-based augmentation can be done when there is a shortage of employees. Business need to hire people quickly and needs to fill a position, right? And I'm gonna call on my man Struggle Security because he works for the big company. That's why those big companies can afford to have people on the bench, just sitting around. So, okay, we got a project coming up. We got 2 or 3 people on the bench around the world, especially with remote now, right? So they could pull them off. Most smaller companies, I was on a bench for a consulting company, and I did a video being on the bench. I was on the bench for 7 months That's rare. Most of the time, if you're on a bench after 2 months, you fired, right? I had a specific skill set. They thought they were going to put me specifically somewhere, and it just didn't work out. But commodity basis, once again, if you're doing a quick programmer, and I need 20 C# programmers with .NET, with SQL Server on Azure, a big company can have those guys on the bench ready, where they have those skill sets. They've been tested. They know what level they're at, right, for the commodity base. So, see, if I apply as a system with the good stats, then I want to learn. I tell you, it's not fair. I've been there before. That's why I worked 10 years at the DOD engineering cannabis, right? That used to bother me because when I first got there, it was like 30% of because they were older, they didn't really want to work, but that actually was to my benefit. And I can learn anything I want. I actually taught myself Java at DOD, and I was learning some other stuff when I was at DOD. So there is an advantage there too. And a lot of times, and we talked about that, is IT's always learning. You got to catch the next wave. And I think after a certain time, people don't want to learn, or a lot of people just trying to get to retirement. Engineering cannabis. So let's see. Skills based. Staff augmentation occurs when business hires skilled workers. These individuals with higher levels of education experience than average workers, allowing them to complete their tasks more efficiently than others within the company. These employees may also have skills not readily available in other companies, making them valuable assets to our organization. And shout out, once again, bigger companies can have these skills just sitting on the bench. And we just saw there was a skill shortage because AWS, Azure, they were hoarding talent. That's why you've seen a lot of people on TikTok not working. They were hiring engineers just so other people couldn't have them. And if the other big engineers couldn't have, the mid to smaller companies were starving, right, for their talent. So you would have to go get staff or try to get that talent from somewhere else. So my man said, yeah, staff aug is the norm. I just feel positioned for staff aug for engagement. I'm running now. I would say that I would say that it's an involved background check process. Yeah, like struggle security we just talked about is, and that's what you do. The smaller consulting companies like I work for, like you said, I had to go to the background check because I'm in government. I had to do the FBI with the fingerprint. One of my guys, I'm gonna have him on, older white guy. He actually had the top secret with the polygraph, right? So you have that talent and you can put it on the bench because those big companies make millions and billions of dollars. Your small company's not going to have that. So if they need that talent, they can afford it for a year, get their product up, and let that talent go. And hopefully that part of that engagement is training the current staff and junior people they bring on, right? And I was good about that because a lot of people like to hoard knowledge. In my mind, I'm like, dude, I'm just going to be here for a minute. I'm going to train these guys. Because after a while, I just train them and I just be eating lunch all day waiting for them. I'd be like, if you got a problem, come see me. My job is to train you up, right? So that I can slack a little bit, right? I got to train up. That bitch time without chargeable work is becoming less and less. I know some spots are doing 8 weeks. Yep, shout out. He's a manager. So yeah, struggle. It's getting real out there that you better have some real skills that you can build because in the old days, I seen big companies put people on the bench for 6-7 months. Like you said, that doesn't happen very much anymore. If that is, you got some super duper skill that's going to be in there. So, and we talked about this highly skilled augmentation. Here, I'm going to drop the link if anybody want to come up. I know Struggle might be babysitting, so I don't put no pressure on my man. Shout out to the baby. I know engineering cannabis too. They high value men with young kids. PBO and low value with no kids. He trying to retire. Shout out to me. But let's look at the high skill individuals come from outside organizations, are hired for a specific project within an organization. May perform the tasks with required expertise, such as developing new projects and solving complex skills. And I'm gonna let Struggle chime in on that. Highly skilled people a lot of times is, I'm pausing. I don't want to say I'm managing their staff, but I'm managing their staff, right? I'm working hand in hand with their management staff. I end up running their development teams or running their cybersecurity teams or running their cybersecurity investments team, because part of being highly skilled in staff augmentation, I got to be able to run different teams and different projects on that assignment. And that's one reason you get that highly skilled bill rate too. Right? It also can be divided in two categories, short-term and long-term. Short-term staff augmentation involves bringing a temporary employee to help with a specific task. If you're working on an ad campaign, you might bring in an intern to help you with design elements. This could be the short term. On the other hand, long-term staff augmentation, when you hire someone for a longer period, typically a year or more, this can be because the employee skills have grown so much they become indispensable to your business, and you need them for the long haul. And that's kind of how I just got lucky. I worked at DoD. I got into a couple super important divisions. One of them was build. In the old days, you could build stuff automatically. We had to do that stuff by hand. So we had 500 programmers check in to Oracle Designer, which was their GitHub back in 2005. And you had to hand and build all the database packages. You had to build the PL SQL package. You had to build, it's called client server, was like their Java, and I had to build a Java package. Then you had to run automated tests. All that stuff was done manually, right? So I ran that team for a while. So that's how I actually got like, oh, my fault, struggle in there. Put my headset on. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You're crystal clear for once, man.
Man, I'm just following along, man.
Chime in on that staff aug. I know that's kind of what you do in real life, man. Like you said,
you
said only 8 weeks now. It used to be a little longer.
Man, 8 weeks, man. I think it might also be because of like the economic climate that if you're not chargeable, if you're not making money for the organization, they're really looking at slimming down overhead expenses, because while you're on the bench, you're not making money for the organization. So it makes sense, but it's a bit like you mentioned. Like before, I would see people on the bench for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but now we're getting let go after that 8, or at least at 8, they're like, yeah, we gotta really either your staff within the next several weeks, or we're going to have to look at So that might be it for you here, buddy.
Yeah, what I tell people though is, I'll let you chime in. If I'm on the bench, a lot of times there's internal projects people need help on.
Right.
So I try to find, okay, do we got any we dropping y'all gems. Y'all better be picking these up.
No, that's 100%.
So I try to, because usually big companies got to do stuff internal too to get ready for projects. So they got internal projects. But sometimes they want to do proof of concepts to show other people that's a new database, new NoSQL, that AI, ME, everybody's trying to do artificial intelligence. So try to get on one of those internal projects. And that's why I tell you, you don't have to go in, but you need to be networking internally so you can try to figure out what's going on.
100%. That's exactly what happens. Like either you can justify that bench time in doing training, right? You can train yourself up and increasing your skill sets to be staffed to more emerging work. Another one is, like you mentioned, building up the practice. So things like getting documentation together, doing other plus ones where you're getting other people ready to execute too, or even doing business development work. I know I do a lot of business development work even when I'm not on the bench. So this is like helping people with RFIs or RFPs or leading them out myself. Now that's not necessarily chargeable, right? But that is helping to build the business pipeline. So, you know, a lot of that is helpful for if you are on the bench. So,
like you said, it's not chargeable, but if the RP wins a $1 million project and your name on it, right, you getting a little credit, right?
You get some credit. Right. You definitely can get some credit, but you know, it's a roll of the dice. You know, a lot of times those relationship managers or those higher level folk that initiate the deals, they might not give you the best information as it concerns your ability to win the bid. So you need to get the best information. You need to be competitive, right? You need to put forth the best resources. Your proposal needs to be clean. You know, it just all depends on it if you're gonna win the work or not. So
the weird thing is I was doing that, and I was doing it, and I guess I didn't realize I was doing it because now every RFP, especially because they got a security part. Like you said, is it Nest? Is it FedRAMP? Is it type of cloud? Or what type of industry? And now every industry's got some kind of cybersecurity. So I specialize in a couple. So I was helping people, and the guy said, "Oh, thanks, man. You helped us." I did what? He just asked me some questions, right? But that's part of adding value to the company. Right? He gave me credit. He actually wrote my boss a nice letter saying he did the security for. But for me, it was just like 10 or 20, I thought, basic questions. But once again, they needed it for the RFP and RFI. And
it could be very helpful in winning work, man, because that's the thing. Like, I know that we were doing RFP for a rail organization. So we were doing just like a security assessment on that rail organization. But nobody had really had experience in what compliance or standards there are for rail systems within that particular organization. So I don't know. I was just Googling around and looking at, I found like a whole list of standards that specifically apply to rail and transportation organizations. And then they were like, oh, okay. So that really kind of popped to the client. Yeah. So that kind of got us to the short list portion of it. But yeah, man. Yeah, they had recognized that.
Yeah, and I tell that, probably like you said, and I think that's popping up. Shout out to Tam and joining us. I think that's popping now because everybody's on top of cybersecurity. There's so many hacks. So cybersecurity, it might not win you the bid, but it can kick you off. And if you have an understanding, especially like you said, rail is so non-common because people don't, I talked about it because they had that accident. So like I was like, oh man, that's a lot of stuff on. I don't know if that's the particular railroad, but for the train accident, I looked up one and I was surprised how many regulations they have for that. And I did like a lot of regulations. Yeah, and I was talking about it from an incident response. You should be talking about, okay, if that actually happens, what's your plan, right? So
absolutely,
if you could put that in RP, sometimes they get kind of tight on the RP. You can only do 50 pages, but you know, if you got a little extra room, that's the stuff you can put in there to get you on the short list and get okay. Because a lot of times you put that in there, I bring that up, and the client ain't never thought about like, oh,
had no idea.
No idea. I'm thinking that's why you need to hire us. And PBO needs to make big money, but no.
For sure. Because with those compliance standards, a lot of times they have a reporting timeline that they have to that organization. So not only to like FBI or CIA, but even the regulating body. So yeah, man.
Because they had a special transportation board. It was something weird. I'm like, oh, I never heard of that. But like you said, and that's why I got a playlist with most of the compliance on there because they're the same, but all of them got a little nuances. So you should try to understand those nuances. And that gets you that SME level or that highly skilled staff out. And that's how you can make that TAM Women in Linux money. Shout out to her in the chat. I'm going to keep reading on this. Okay, when to use staff out. To train, reinforce your in-house, to bridge skill gaps, to expand the team fast, to meet the deadlines when other models do not work. And I see this because you just
Which one do you see the most? Which one do you see the most?
Which one I see the most? Probably skill gap.
I was just about to say that.
Because especially because I do a lot of Fed work and state work, and they can't spend the money on that talent. So they usually bring me in to train that. So I usually use the skills gap. And part of the skill gap, I wouldn't say expand the team fast, but probably train them up. So the skills gap, so then I can train them. What's your thought on that?
I would say 2 combined with 3. So 3 a lot of times is if you have a new project and you just want a whole bunch of money to expand the team fast. So they need those skilled folk in quantity in order to really, and I think 2 and 3 combines to lead into 4, right? A lot of times they have a certain amount of money they have to spend in a certain period of time. They need the correct people, but they need also those numbers of people in order to meet those project deadlines. So, you know, I think 2, 3, and 4.
No, you're right.
1 is typically they'll do, especially if you talk about like a managed service provider, they'll just outsource all of that, right? If you're talking about like a virtual SOC or something. But number 5, let's see, other models do not work for you. I don't see number 5 a whole lot.
We're going to talk about the other models are coming up. But yeah, that's what, and 2 is you're right, because a lot of times, especially in the government, is they're going to give you this money and you got, you know, because you budgeted and you budgeted for a year. And a lot of times is they don't want to lose it. So they might bring in some skills just to try them out because they got some extra money.
Yeah,
right, too. So, which is big, but 2 is another gym is, and I got caught with this. People tell you they have a 5-year RFP or 5-year engagement. What they don't tell you is they're in year 5 of the 5-year engagement. They only got 6 months left. So if they don't win it, you fired, right? So you need to ask them, okay, what year are you in this 5-year game? Because I just got lucky. One guy whispered, he said, dude, it's only 4 months left of this contract. I'm like, what? They won it again. But those are the things you need to be asking is for those deadlines and timelines and how that's going to work. Oh, here, let me read it real quick. To reinforce your teams, we just talk about that. Even if you have in-house software developers or any skill set, to essentially complement or enhance your current expertise when releasing a new project. Skills gap. Companies may have multiple projects going on time. Most big companies do. Many of these projects require different skills and different specialties. Demand of these particular skills is constantly changes, so you need to dynamically address those issues on project by project basis. Staffing allows you to add experienced developers bringing specialized skills that they may not need outside this project. So you do not have to spend the time, energy, and money training you. The weird part is I see both of that since I work in federal and state. Most of their stuff, I wouldn't say it old, but they're not breaking out with anything new because they have compliance check. And a lot of those compliance checks, they're not going to let you bring in MongoDB. I remember when it first came out, I'm like, dude, we can't use no MongoDB. Right.
On Windows 11.
Yeah, right. So they're going to make you use tried and true. But even those skill set, I was decent at Oracle, but when they brought the real Oracle SME in, I was like, oh man, I got a lot left to learn, right? Because my skills could work at something less than 100 million, but we started dealing with petabytes. So the stuff I did at a smaller data set, it didn't work at a larger data set, right? So they had to bring in back then a special large data expert. Now that's common now because you got, big companies. But back then in 2005, those skills were super rare.
I would say with the reinforcing skills, the first one, I would say that typically they're not bringing in brand new people. They're not bringing in fresh out of college or early career folk. They're bringing in experienced individuals who can a lot of times train your less experienced folk. So, that's another thing when you kind of what we were talking about being like the highest skilled person or being the technical SME. Sometimes they're bringing you in order to train up their less skilled people. So you almost are coming in with an expiration date. They don't have long-term aspirations. That's one of those negatives of being like that technical that technical expert within a lot of organizations. So
right. But your bill rate's going to be astronomical. But like you said, but the thing you got to balance with that is, hopefully you work for a consulting company and they got clients that use you at that bill rate. Where they have something set up for you. And that's why I tell people, and a lot of people, we kind of go back and forth. I tell, especially young people, go work for a big consulting company. Even if you make a little money, number one, they're going to teach you how this game is run. You're going to work on multiple projects. Then you get to see that internal consulting game. And sometimes, that could be cutthroat. That's an excellent learning. And you get to see it. You get to see people bid on RFPs. I could bid on RFPs because I've seen it, right? When you first try to do it, right? When I first went on Upworks, people were like, how you win bids so quick? So I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for a decade, right? I've been working on RFPs. So if you've seen RFP, you know that verbiage, you know how to do the statement of work, right? You know how to do your breakdown of your different programming, initial, all that type stuff. If you've seen it, right? Even if you've done it, you've seen it, right? That helps you. And and that helps you too. When you go talk about salaries, you know what those bill rates are, so you know kind of what part of your salary. Okay, if they're billing 200, even with my benefits, I at least need to be getting 60% of that, right? Or at least half of that, right? Chime in on that. What's your thoughts?
No, and even just as you're talking about, when you're able to bid, like so like I've been doing just RFPs, RFIs for several years now, it's like you're able to recognize some of those nuances and what has even by losing, you're gaining experience, and the fact that you just mentioned being with large consulting firms. You're getting a large volume of what looks good and what looks bad, what has won, what hasn't won, and even just being able to read what the proposal the customer is putting out there, and being able to really construct your proposal based upon what they have. I think that's a skill within itself, because sometimes people propose or people put out RFPs that aren't really aligned to what the customer is even asking. They
don't know. They don't know.
They don't know. It's like applying to a job, but not really tailoring your resume to the job description. So being able to really pull out some of those key points, really what they're looking for, is something that's really important. And that because you get such a large volume of them with these large consulting firms, it almost becomes second nature.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that too is That's why they should do an RFI. You start pointing out stuff they don't even know about. I've been on RPs. I'm like, excuse me, you have to report to FERPA because it's the education part. We got to do it. I'm like, what? This is an education training, and you're getting education dollars from them. Now you got to do their breach. We do. They didn't even know that, right? So you helping them, and what, like you said, once you've done a lot of, and the weird thing is, you see people put stuff. I know in RPs, it's not illegal, but I'm thinking you can't do that because the Fed said you can't, right? They do stuff and it's like, you can't do that, right? But their new organization, they got some money, so I'm like, but once you do it, but two, once again, back to that's what makes you a highly skilled consultant. That's what makes you get them big money. That's what makes you get that TAM $300,000 money, right? Because you know those nuances for RP and RFI.
And it really helps you to understand more of the business of your organization. I think one of the most integral pieces of some of those RFPs is that of key differentiators. Like, how are you differentiated from your competitors? What makes you special as an organization? So knowing your organization's capabilities allows you to be more in tune with the business. So, I found a lot of value there because I'm like, oh, okay, this is more high level than just in the weeds of the services that I'm able to execute. So
but now you talking. I'm gonna word this right. Now you buy the money, right? That's the people, because now you help an organization get paid. Now you're going really from a technical resource. We're gonna call it, I'm calling that a management resource. What's your thought on that? Because you're not talking technical. Now you're talking about the nuances of business, and you rainmaking and getting business, right? So that's a different level of movement.
Absolutely, 100%, man. And I think that's an area of tech that's not always discussed, right?
It's not
discussed.
Very much.
It's never.
Let's be real, never.
A lot of times, especially on YouTube, we stuck and it's not bad altogether, but I do think it's limited. We're stuck at, hey, do you want a Security Plus or a CCNA, or do you want I don't know, work for big tech companies and layoffs and things? Like, I think that the conversation is happening, but you really are not getting to what really distinguishes you as a tech business person. So
but I think too, though, is you're 100% correct, but I think right now we're so focused on, let's get the cert, let's get the bag, let's do engineering, which is not bad technical.
It's not bad.
And I just brought this up, and we talked about this before. Me and Tim talked about this. You're going to get to a certain level where, okay, you're going to be a technical SME, or you're going to get into management and directors. Now, I think that part is, you're talking about managed directors and rainmaking, right? Right. So I think that's a whole different skill set,
man.
And
or even just resource planning. I've done I've been working in tools like Salesforce. So we have some internal tools within the firm I work for where we're able to manage our project or manage our engagements, where we're able to do resourcing, how many hours, how much time, what is our we have some metrics internally to be able to decide what our revenue would be if we're able to staff certain individuals. Like, it just really gets to the nitty-gritty of the metrics behind how viable this particular engagement is to the organization. And resource planning is a whole nother monster.
Oh yeah, and like you said, I've seen it because a lot of time project manager would come and ask me, how long would that take you to do from I'm like, I don't know, I gotta think about it.
Right? They just want to,
But is you big enough know where you do a couple of them, you start having metrics. Okay, we did this and it's similar to this engagement, right? So you start building that internal knowledge, and that's what big consulting companies do. But when you first start off as small, you're like, well, I don't know. Go ahead.
That's 100%. Like, I'm starting to get to that point because I can think about, like, hey, this is a senior manager. They have this particular bill rate. We have this engagement that needs to last for 4 months. These are the amount of hours that I need for this person. These are the specific work streams that I need them to be working on. And they'll be supported by this other manager, this manager who had this bill. Like it just gets very to the numbers. Like, people, like, I see how, like, in firms and everything, how you start talking about, like, hey, this is Mike, to, like, this is a resource. This is a senior management resource. This is a senior security analyst resource.
And the weird thing is, big companies, they make me mad. I know why you do it. And you're like, okay, we got 10 people, then we need a supervisor. But if we got 20 people, we got two supervisors. Now we need a project manager to watch the 2 supervisors. I'm
Absolutely.
Like, your ass is overbilling, but go ahead.
And that's the thing, right? Sometimes within the proposal from the customer, they'll say they want an agile management type of work. So then you recognize, okay, boom, that means that I need a project manager specifically to address that thing that customer wants. So now I'm going to staff a project manager for this amount of hours. They don't necessarily have to be 100%. They can be 50%, but they really help to build things out. They help to get the stand-ups and going through all that type of stuff. What tools will they need? What overhead am I, man, it just gets.
And the crazy thing is I push back, but your bigger clients expect you to have that. If you don't have that, they think you're lacking, right?
It's an expectation.
They expect you to have like you said, a project manager, a PMO, or a product owner, and because a lot of big companies,
sponsor.
Because we had a PMO, they want your PMO to talk to their PMO, right? So that's, at that level setting,
right? Like recognizing who your point of contact is. Exactly. Is your point of contact like a manager within a tech group, or is there an executive? So you're going to have to level set. So if there's an executive that I recognize that's going to be on this project as a stakeholder on the customer side, I got to have a level set for on my side. So I need an executive sponsor that I also need to staff to this project too. So, and then you just start getting to money. The money just start adding up.
Shit, getting the money, you at the money when you start talking. Like I seen them bills, I'd be like, oh my God. But then when you really think of it, it's like, that's really what you need for a large project, especially at the government level, because you got to have extra paperwork, extra diagrams, extra meetings. And so it's a whole, because
resumes, backgrounds, their applicability to the project that we all are delivering. Everybody needs to be associated in some way. So
that's true. Agreed. Let me read these quick staff augmentation. So let's on site. And 2 is I was surprised when I saw that, because when I think of staff augmentation, to be honest, I always think on site. But now with remote work, you see number 2, we're gonna get to remote staff out, because everybody's working remotely. So you as a staff out could be working remotely, right? I just never that took a while for me to like, oh, that makes sense. But let's on-site staff augmentation. If I was hiring a temporary professional to work on the premises, that type of service allows for direct collaboration and seamless integration into the existing team. On-site staff aug is ideal for projects that require close coordination, team alignment, face-to-face interaction to ensure efficient communication and foster strong working relationships. I have to be honest, a lot of times when I was brought on site for a staff aug, I was there to shake the team up because something wasn't going right? So I had to get all the cats going right. We brought you here for this expertise, and you need to get our team because they're behind someone going right. So my job was, I hate that, was to herd the cats in the right direction. Right? So let's get to
the remote staff aug is interesting because there's some considerations like equipment. So right, did I don't know, get enough investment by the customer, or am I going to have to pull funds to be able to get this staff aug like their own computer? Or will they be doing just remote access with their own infrastructure? And are they comfortable with that? Right. So in getting accounts and everything. So,
I usually work in Fed. So it's just point blank. I was going to use federal computers because your favorite thing you hate, they got to be STIG'd or CIS. So like you're like, we ain't doing none of that. So
it depends on the resource, because for some of them, they really do, especially for security work, they really do need to have those machines really tight. Right. Because then you get like information leakages. Spillage. Yeah.
And 2 is the work I do, because I do a lot of RS. They tell you they have to run agency division equipment because they want you to have the same, because they want you to be able to control. You putting your own OUs on there, you hooking them to AD, you going through there. So they want you to go through the same, because what's going to happen is 100%. Those federal agencies are going to come out and audit that infrastructure. So they want the consultants using that same infrastructure. So they don't have to worry about supply chain attacks is one of the big ones. They want to make 100%. Sure they all in their own supply chain. So that's less things they would have to worry about.
And then also one more thing is that people act like it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with this remote work, but people just acting like they could just be anywhere and working remotely for organizations as a remote staff augmentation. No, you need to, a lot of time, like I'm on a project now that I had to in some ways let go of some international resources. So it was some
Facts.
Canadian resources who were on the project. Comfortable, the customer wasn't comfortable with that,
Facts.
so I had to replace them with U.S. resources. Right, so people can't just be anywhere working for all these organizations. Some customers, especially in security, they do
Oh,
want a tighter
yeah.
grasp on geographically where all the people are.
Yeah, we had a conversation. Shout out to Citizen Lewis. They're going to be looking at your IP address, and people says, "Oh, well, we're going to use VPN." I'm like, "No, you're going to use the client's VPN, and the
Right.
client's VPN is going to be telling them where you coming from.
Where you
They're
are.
snitching on you." So
They are.
but two
I don't
is
know
if you're doing NIST or any, I do IRS. They tell you all your work's got to be in CONUS, continental United States. You can't have anybody else. Go ahead and chime in on that one.
No. I was gonna say I agree. Yeah, I don't want to just belabor the point. My bad, because you know I will.
No, I'll find where it out. But no, I think a lot of people get, and two is depending on what type of work. That's one reason I stay in the Fed space, because that's a barrier to entry. They usually want you to have United States citizenship. A lot of times a high level background check, if not a security clearance, right? And a lot of times, I had a buddy of mine from the Philippines. They had to write, he was the best Oracle programmer I've seen. They had to write a special letter. He had a green card. They didn't want to take his green card. It took us a year to get his green card. It was approved to get his section so he could, and he was in the United States. It wasn't like he was overseas. He was in, it took us a year to get him. So, and two, as I tell people, that's one reason I stay in the Fed space, because it's less competition.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot less international competition within the Fed space. But there's also, I'm gonna say one more example, and this I literally just dealt with this last week. We had a resource that's worked for our firm who previously worked for this customer as a contractor. All right, I don't know what his relationships were with the folk that worked there previously, but the lead knew who he was, the point of contact on the customer side, and we were bringing him in because he just worked for our consulting firm. Issue is that they didn't want him on the project because I don't know, whatever it was. So they said immediately remove him. And this is a senior level, high level type of resource. So, it's going to be hard to replace him. But at the same time, people who previously worked for organizations that you might be doing business with, you really got to look into that too when you talk about that staff hog.
The weird thing is, I'm a climb on, and we get to the next two, is I had the same problem, but it wasn't, they love me. But the crazy was the client says their clients were saying they were poaching their talent. So if I was on a site where they had their customer, I had to be out a year because I guess their clients were saying, "Hey, we training these people up," because Splunk does that. They be poaching talent. So they were like, "If you poach our talent, we ain't gonna buy your app, right?" So they were like, "We love you, but you gotta wait a year to come back." I was like, "What?" Crazy. And they showed me. He said, "You hit everything. We want to hire you. It was a great job." But he said, "You gotta wait 6 months because any of our clients that use that, we just got, because they were saying we were poaching and we didn't want to piss our clients up. So that's just kind of rule we had." I was like, "That's some bullshit." But go ahead.
And that's crazy. Like even just this, it's so crazy because even this discussion, right? This is tech discussion, but this is just getting jobs. This is putting people into the roles for these jobs. And don't nobody really be talking about this, man. And I had to learn it as I was experiencing it. And it's hard.
This one thing everybody talk about, memberships. So I want to do GRC at this level, like you said. When you're applying for jobs, when you do RFPs, how do you come out and do an assessment of security, right? Because a lot of times once they get it set up, you got to come out, okay, is it PCI compliant, HIPAA compliant, hospital, right? So I think that's a level that people just don't talk about, because a lot of people are just trying to get into the industry, right? We both been in here forever. Shout out to Tam. We've been in this game for a long time. So, and I did a video on that. I did security. I just talk about contracts. I was doing RFIs and RFPs all day because they were bidding our work. And that's from a security perspective. That's all. And I did an assessment because we're going to build this for the client. Check out the security high tire. Is it going to pass IRS or PCI? And that's all I did. Like you said, it's just totally different. A different part of security.
100%.
The crazy thing is that really makes more a lot of times than technical, because you're talking about the money.
Yes.
So I think that's what people. So let's talk about this remote real quick. Remote staff, as the name suggests, and it just sunk in my head when I saw this. Hiring people who work remotely, which is common now. Type of service provide business with access to global talent pool, particularly suitable for organizations seek specialized skills or costs. Remote staff offers flexibilities and scalabilities. And let's talk about the project base. Basically they're hiring you for a project. Team based is usually what I come in. Team based augmentation involves hiring an entire team or work on a particular project or area. This approach requires a ready-made, I guess I take that back, a whole ready-made team with the necessary skills and expertise to address complex team-based staff aug. I take that back. I did work on that. I worked on this one guy. He's coming on my team. He was bond consulting. He has a specialty in government accounting. So he had a pretty ready-made team of 10 people. I was one of them that he could drop in and do that type of work. The crazy thing is, you were like this, I have the MBA. We were talking about government accounting. And I just whispered to the accounting guy, I'm like, that's illegal. You can't repost or post. He whispered, he goes, we don't report. We report to the government. We can do anything we want. I go, I will sit down and shut up. But go ahead and chat. Because like you said, each domain is a little industry. That's because I knew what GAAP accounting was. It's like, we're the government. We don't report to GAAP. We report to Congress. I was like, I had to be quiet. But go ahead. What's your thoughts?
No, with that ready-made team, that's typically what most of these consulting firms do, like whether it's Big Four or NBB or anybody. So they bring the team in to solve that particular issue or solve that particular problem. Yep.
So I usually work for smaller teams that sub those guys, and I think we'd be filling in the gaps of their bigger team. Yeah. So I think that's kind of why. So
I'm leaning on the engagement, probably like a 8 month, almost 12 months really engagement. 15 people. 15 people. 15 people. Yeah, man. This is a pretty large team. Mostly everybody is senior.
Yeah, the crazy thing is
everybody's senior.
That is what you said, and we ain't gonna talk about money, but a lot of times you get 10, you talk about practice, man, that could be $2.4 million or something. That teams I think are
it's
little.
It's a multiple million dollar project. Yeah.
And that surprised me because I'm thinking low dollar amount, 15, you just thinking right. I'm like, that ain't, and I saw the dollar amount because like you said, practice managers, some of those guys are 400 or 500. Junior people for big teams are like 300. So you start adding that stuff. I'm like, oh shit, that's those 15 people. That's like 2.4 or something crazy.
Yep. 100%.
So it took me a while. It took me a while to get used to those dollar amounts. So choosing the right staff, like we talked about, expertise and experience, flexibility, cultural fit. That's big in DoD. Communication and project management and talent. The cultural fit in DoD it was so male dominated. I was on a telephone conference with 300. It was ran by a general. He was saying MF on a call, and I've never seen that in a profession because he's ex-military. Everybody on the call is military. So that's what they do. So for me, I think they've changed that over the years. But when I first got there, I was like, what? Can he do that? They go, he's a 2-star general. He can do what he wants. I'm like, okay.
Cultural fit. I don't know. That sounds funny to me. If they have a big emphasis on cultural fit, I don't know. Those are places where I don't really want to work at.
I agree because I think I'm gonna say this right. That kind of insinuate in other things. Like we were talking about microaggressions and all kind of other stuff. So I'm with you on that one. So let's see. How can you pair and staff augment with other models, office facilities, recruiting, payroll, engagement, management, overhead expense, salary review, and employee perks and communication. That's a lot of times people do staff augments. They let the consulting company handle all that. They got a budget. They like, here our budget. You handle all this.
Yep.
Go ahead. Chime in on
No. I just agree with that. Yep.
So I'm just gonna skim through some of these staff aug versus independent contractors. Right, staff aug, right? It's all inclusive. They're gonna have independent, right? You hiring people onesies and twosies, right? So which is managed services. One you were talking about, the most apparent distinction between staff aug and managed services, the amount of control a client provides with the vendor. While the former, I had to read this because I don't know.
I thought it was the same as
we can find out. Let's see their take on it. While the former only assigns provisions as a staff required to the vendor, and the rest stays under the client control, the latter operates as a one in all service. Vendors offering managed service presumes external control of the client's non-core systems. They manage all aspects of the client's function when providing talent. Therefore, managed service presumes a higher amount of delegation. This can often be an excellent solution for companies looking to optimize their resource allocations and concentrate on their in-house teams for strategic. Additionally, managed service providers usually has a development team bench. Okay, then this
Okay.
means you begin with the project related task right after the contract signing instead of waiting while the vendor hires the work. Yeah, I'm like you. I thought they were the same, but I could see the minor distinction
I could
there.
see it too, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I know that when I worked for when Mandy and FireEye were combined, we got some purview into how the FireEye, the products part was, and that kind of how it mentions it was that there was a development team within the FireEye products, right?
Fine.
That came with that managed services. So we even know that FireEye will have visibility into the customer's environment and all that, but as there were developments in the product, as there were rollouts and everything, those were all reported. So typically, I see a lot of times that that managed service provider is a lot of times by those product organizations,
Yeah.
because they're able to continuously develop and update their products as they're deploying them within customer environments.
Yeah, like you said, I think that managed service usually is I'm calling the API, right? And if I need them to fix something, the API, right, it's kind of where that staff aug, I feel like, those are just resources that I control, like really my staff almost.
Yeah, because I got like what like Splunk. I already have it in my environment, but I'm hiring staff. Like the staff aug is remote. I don't know, security operations center folk.
Yeah.
Who can log into the dashboards and the systems and be able to perform the whatever security task and ticketing systems that they have. So I can see the difference for sure.
Yeah. I'm like when I first saw it, I'm like those are close. The staff aug, like you said, offshore development teams, right? Staff augs on a lot of times, like I said, I do fair work, so offshore teams aren't we can't use them. So go ahead.
No, I just said, yep. Yeah, my bad. I was yawning a little bit.
Nah, you good. How to choose the right staff aug, project duration, calculating the cost, and data sensitivity. And I think engineering cannabis brought that up. Consider the sensitivity of what data you disclose for this signing and augmentation contract. That's what I do. I sign NDAs like water, NDA terms and conditions with concerns to vendor and development. It sums up always to try to demand a stack augmentation agreement containing an NDA clause. Consider your project total duration and calculation expense carefully to best pick the augmentation model for use. You want anything chime in on that? That's
Nope, not on that one.
All right. So, like you said, pros and cons. Pros: flexibility, signing of cost reduction, mass time saving, direct communication, increased productivity. Cons, and I think engineering cannabis brought this up: privacy risk, managerial bottleneck, quality control, insufficient technical expertise, right? So that's where the company you hire, of course, should have resumes, people on the bench, and a track record so you can understand your technical expertise. But the other weird thing is I found out, especially at the height, of course, it was more 2004, a lot of times those people are hiring the same people you trying to hire. They're putting out, because a lot of times, like you said, their bench is so thin, so they're trying to hire the same people you trying to hire. Man. I actually see that a lot. A lot of times when you see jobs on Indeed and LinkedIn, those are the big companies trying to get their staff out so they can put you at a client site.
Man, I'm telling you, it's like that. I know one. It was earlier this year. We were competing for some work, and it turned out that we got down selected to maybe three companies. I was like, man, that company looks very familiar. I looked in like my LinkedIn inbox. That company was trying to hire me for the same work that we both were bidding on.
Facts.
So I'm like, oh, they don't have the people. They don't have them.
Because
we the people.
Right.
Yeah, so we so just like you mentioned, we all competing for the same pool of resources. And
it's small. And then too, it got smaller because the big cloud people was hiring all the damn talent up and just having eating that lunch on them. So when I figured out, I was at Oracle, and like you, they pinged me, and I'm like, dude, I'm at the site y'all trying to hire for. Then I was mad. I'm like, hell, y'all offered me $40,000 and what I'm making on the site. I had to go talk to a few people. I'm like, dude, they offered me $40,000 more. So.
Man. And sometimes you just like as a resource that people really need, you could really start to really play the game. Play them against each other.
I did. They actually hooked me up. They like, well, I filed, and they gave me a bump. They talked to my consultant company and gave me a bigger
Yeah.
title. But my thing is, you should have did that before somebody had to
Right.
reach out, right? So
Right.
it went out the goodness of their heart. They thought I was gonna bolt, right?
Man.
So, but
I
the
got
crazy
you.
thing is though, I got 40,000 and I did less work because I was managing the people they hired. So it was crazy.
Yep. That's how it is.
But I think that's all I had. It was just somebody asked me about staff aug. So, like you said, I just kind of want to talk about it. And two is, like you talked about, when you're doing R5s and RP, and now you're hiring people. Shout out to Tim. You want to get a team to go bid on some work. This is really kind of the one of the models you're going to use, because if you start out, you ain't gonna have money, right? So you got to figure out how to build a team, give them some equity part, then try to go out there and get work. Then the big companies, they trying to find that skill set, right? So you can be billable, because like you said, in the old days, you might get 6 or 7 months. I got 7 months, but most people now, unless you got a super skill set, you might get 2 months at the most. And if you ain't got 2, you better start looking, because like I was, my company, they called me on the Teams, then I saw HR in the corner. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what this is.
Oh man. See, that's the thing, man. People
I already
make
knew
like
it was coming. Go ahead. I knew it was coming.
People make like it's so easy to just start your own consulting firm. No, like you gotta have some way to be able to have some type of customer base. I would say people should probably start off being able to execute certain services themselves, right? Or being able to automate some of the services and really gaining in your relationships with your customer base. I think that's a good first start.
I tell people, I tell people go work for a big company like you, so you get to see it. Especially if you got 1 or 2 years. And 2 is they're gonna pay you the most. And 2 is if you're young, hopefully you know how you travel. And when you travel, now you can do stuff remote. But when you travel, you learn the most, because you with guys, you 30 guys, y'all eating together, and really y'all working through the night, because they gonna burn you up. So we was working like 10 hours a night, but I was getting so much better because I was just working with different people. It's like, try this out, man. I think this will be a better way. I'm like, oh yeah, that ran 1,000 times faster than what I just designed. So you learn it too. Is when those people leave, you still got those relationships. Like I got people I got an interview with AWS because I knew somebody and I got some certs. Now I wasn't quite 100%. Ready for it when I got that 6-hour interview. Somebody did a little more, few more laps, but I got it though. That's what I got it. But
that's 100%, man. It's just like being able to have that, and that's that professional network thing that we were talking about. People building that up, because the best opportunities come from your professional network. They don't necessarily come from LinkedIn. They don't necessarily come, right? Some, sure. But the best ones definitely come from, okay, I know a guy that works over here who can kind of get me in. And even people getting interviews at some of those large tech companies, it comes from a referral program, right? It don't typically come from people who are just interviewing off a LinkedIn post. So
but let's give them real gem. And I'm sure you had this happen is,
man,
50% of the jobs you interviewed, they have to post. Half those jobs are filled because somebody's connected with them, right? And I was upset until it started working for me. Then when you start seeing something super specific, that's people network. A lot of times they want to hire somebody in-house. They can't. They got to post it from 2 days. So if you see something and it disappeared in 2 days, that was already meant for somebody.
It was already there.
And that's what you would think. That's 40% of the jobs out there. You think I'm too aggressive with that number? I'm saying about 40.
And those 6-hour interviews, it was funny. I had turned down another firm wanted to interview me for a role as just a senior manager role, and they knew who they knew who I was, but they wanted like 3 or 4 rounds of interviews. I told them no. I knew I was perfect. I knew it. PBO. I knew I was perfect for the job. I was like, I'm not about to do 3 or 4 different interviews.
Come on, man. I'm sorry. That's the system, man. But
nah. Now they asked me like, why didn't I want to? I was like, because I'm happy in my current role. You all reached out to me, and I'm just not willing to dedicate that amount of time for an interview process for a job that I already know how to do. That I'm currently doing. So I was just like, nah.
Casual economists, we cool on it. That's 6 hours with AWS. They have something called the loop. So you interview with HR, you interview with your technical manager, you interview with 2 people on your team, then you get this advocate.
Man,
It's kind of AWS advocate kind of in there. I ended up arguing with the AWS advocate. I felt like it was Dave Chappelle. When keeping it real goes wrong. I told him he didn't know nothing about global GRC. I said, yeah, I think I went too far.
PBO, it's the same way. Like I interviewed for Google not too long ago, and it's the same way. You get that advocate, all those rounds of interviews, man. It's just
so casual one too is in Gabe. No, this is. I think when you do, especially those big companies, Azure, Google, I think that's part of the infrastructure. But two, I ain't gonna shut up. I think I was mid-level and my base pay was like 360. I don't make close to that now. By the time I got 170 base, I think I got 80 in stock options. I think I got like 40 sign-on bonus. I was like, man, that's crazy.
Starts to add up.
But so for 6 hours, I could try for that. But it was brutal though. After a while, at 4, I almost quit. I'm like, man, I ain't gonna get, because sometimes, as you do an interview, like, yeah, this ain't going well at all.
Man, I know one time I was interviewing, it was back in 2020, 2019. I was interviewing while I was on travel for my company. I interviewed at night. I was interviewing 4-5 because it was California time and I was Eastern Standard Time. So I was 3 hour difference. So I was done with the work for the day. But at the same time, oh my gosh, I did like a 4 or 5 hour interview that evening, like 2 rounds of just one-on-ones. And then the last round was like a panel one. I was like, yo, this is crazy.
Yeah, I had a panel in there too. And they were like hitting me up with questions. And the crazy thing though is I was going for GRC and I think they got confused. I was interviewing for engineering. I'm like, dude, I know I ain't. I'm like, hell, I'm here now.
They love doing that. They love throwing some little things. Because one was like a personality one. Another one was like, because I was interviewing for a TPM, so technical program manager role. So another one was program management, project management. Then another one was like cybersecurity, and the last one was like a panel one. I'm like, all right, never again. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think I might try one more time. Like, I think I'm too old. But when I saw them restricted stock options, I'm like, oh my God. That's on a whole nother
But for my current org, man, the thing is that we all know each other. So they knew me. Man, it was like a couple of, like 2 interviews, man. It wasn't nothing. It wasn't, it was, and I got a hefty bag from this one. But it's like, we all know who each other are. We see each other at conferences. We see each other at all the things. They see my content online. It's just like, nah.
And that's the thing too. Let's go highlight, and we're gonna wrap it up. That's why you need to do conferences. That's why you need to do content. That's why you need to do on LinkedIn. Like, I'm old, so I got a real network. But if you're starting out, I think even if you're learning, right? People learn from you learning. And I met a ton of people on YouTube that can help you. So, but you need to put yourself out there. And you're not gonna be perfect. I tell people, when me and Gabe, we debate sometimes. Like, people, I don't know about that. I sent you that information on your LinkedIn. I go, here's my information. This is my account. And two is, I tell people, I'm not arrogant enough to think I know everything in IT, computer science, computer security. It's too big. So I expect to learn from other people, and I'm gonna be wrong a few times. I don't think it's gonna be a lot, but I'm cool with being. If you got data, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. A lot of people take stuff personal. Nah, man, I want people to correct me. I want people to challenge me because I understand what I'm doing. So I say, here you go. This is what we were talking about, autonomous trucks. I just shot it to you on LinkedIn. Here the video I did. Here are my 4 sources, man. If you got something back. But 2, I think I'm gonna redo it because it's 3 years later. I think I did that like in 2021. But
man, there's a link. Somebody sent me something for like a resume. You talk about resumes, right? I'm sorry.
No, just in general. No, just in general. No, I send you a link on autonomous trucks. Somebody was talking about AI. I tell people, for me, Indeed's got the AI built in because the stuff I check when I first come in, it shows me those same jobs, the kind of remote, GRC, senior level. So they got some artificial intelligence.
You got it on lock, because they'll send you stuff like very specific to what you're choosing.
And then the cool thing too is I'm lazy, so once my resume in there, I can look up stuff specifically and apply to exactly what I want because my resume is so vast. People like, you want to be a Java programmer? I'm like, dude, I ain't get that 15 years. Did you look at my resume, man? So I don't let headhunters reach out to me. I try to just do my search and pick who I want. Like you said, they're going to send me some stuff and I can figure out if I want to apply to them.
Right. All right, man. It's been real, man. I'm going to go ahead and drop down.
That's cool.
Thank you for having me, man.
Nah, thanks for coming up. You in the business more than me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, peace.
Peace, man. I'm gonna hang out just a little longer. See if anybody got any more questions. You can come up. I put the link in there. You want to come up, or you can just drop the pack. Yeah, but yeah, guys, you kind of when you trying for those 300,000, aka Tim jobs, man. They want to interview you for 6 hours, man. AWS ate me up, man. I was feeling old. They was tearing me up. But two is I learned a lot. If I want to try again, maybe in a year, like Tam said, I got my certs now. I got to get my lab on and start working on my containerizations. And for them, it's called AWS organization, how to set up a large federal or a large client in their best practices, right? So I think that's the next step in my AWS learning. And you're going to see that I'm going to start doing more AWS labs again, based on GRC, based on cybersecurity. So that means setting it up secure, setting it up saying it's good for NIST or HIPAA, Health and Hospital, FERPA. I've been in all those acronyms. Why would I do that? That's the space I work in, those federal spaces. So I need to know those compliances like the back of my hand. So let's get on. Yeah, it's called the loop. I might do a video. I got to see what I signed up. Yeah, it's called the loop if you look it up. And if you look up L5 and L6s, they'll show you. Let me see if I can look up. I'm sure somebody talked about it. It's this one guy, he was actually doing videos on it. Here. So yeah. I'm gonna show it real quick. Shut it down. Yeah, it was for me, I learned a lot, and I think I'm a good interviewer, but that loop was a different ball game for me. So here it is, real quick. Somebody was talking about it. What is Amazon Loop? It's an interview. Who's in charge of doing the loop? A whole day, 4 to 6 as a current employee. So they're just talking about the questions. Like I said, you can look it up. What aspect former employer do you dislike? And you got it. It's called the STAR. So you got to have actual results of the questions they ask you. They want metrics of it, so you can check it out. And most of the big companies are doing STAR or the Loop interview. But yeah, that was that was brutal. So, Tammy, they need to pay for a whole day of work. No, Tammy don't work that way, but I feel like that. But yeah, there it is, guys. If you want to check it out, that's the Loop. Oh, there's Tim right there in the house. No, you facts. You're right, Tim. I think that's that Silicon Valley big company feel. That sushi life. So no, you're right, Tim. I just Google, like Gabe said, I did AWS, Azure. They all kind of solidified around the Loop. So, but no, you're right. My last couple of jobs, I just did one and done, but I don't make 350. but no, you're right. And I might talk about the Loop or interviewing, but two is I just want to talk about staff augmentation. We got a managed service. Two is as you grow in your career, somebody actually sent me some work, some side work. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to do it or not. And I was going to do it as a managed service. Yeah, facts. You coming up, Tim? Or you want me to shut it down? I got the link down there. And if you want to come up and chop it up, I know you're a busy woman. So let me put it down there if you want to come up. If not, that's cool. I know you're a busy woman. But like I said, just chopping it up, went up to RP, RFIs. Like I said, I did staff augmentation for 20 years. Sometimes I think I stayed too long. That's fine. You don't have to come on camera. I trust you. You don't have to come on camera. I'm not gonna make you come on. You go. I'm cool with that. We just need to hear your voice and your expertise. You're good. You don't have to come on camera. I've seen you enough. You good? I could tell it's by you by what you typing. But once again, the Loop, I think that's the big companies, and Gabe chime in. I think bigger companies, they kind of get on this same thing where if one company does it, like I said, the STAR, we can look at that, the STAR, cool. The STAR interview coming up. Like I said, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I thought it made me a little better in my interview game. The reason why I think the loop made me better, just the sheer length of it was kind of wearing me down. I could go hard for about an hour and a half. That's 6 hours. By my fourth one, but I was kind of breaking down, like, I'm quitting. I don't even want it. But I think from that perspective, I think it helped me too. Once with anything, once you do it once, right, you got a better feel for it, right? What that is, and kind of how that goes, and two is kind of like we always talk about. Two is even at my age, what's my 3 year move, what's my 5 year move, and what's my 10 year. Even though hopefully the 10 year for me is me retiring, but I need to start planning for those different actualities in my life because it's gonna happen, right? And I don't want to be shocked if I get laid off. A lot of times you get laid off, it's not personal, right? It's resource happened, something fell off, or they lost a big client, right? A lot of times it might not be you, it could be your the employer you work for. They lost a big contract, or they're going through some stuff, right? So what is up?
What's going on, man?
You want to add something, man? I want to get you live and in person, man. You're a valuable member of the community. I had to, as my man, every time I had to summon you to the congregation.
I'm a broke college student out here trying to make it.
Nah, we know you got that experience, man. I've been working on my Docker, trying to get a little better because of you. I ain't got about 10 years left. I'm trying to get out the game, but go ahead.
Cool. I hear you on that one. Yeah. So I had stepped away. I came back on the tail end, but I had stepped away when you were talking about staff augmentation. I'm gonna add to that, right?
That's perfect. Yeah.
So some of when we're talking about staff augmentation, right? You can start a consulting company, and then you can partner with people like AWS or GitLab or SysDig or say like a Rafe, which manages Kubernetes clusters. So you can partner with those companies. Now, here's the trick with that. When you partner with those companies and you start utilizing their sales team to send you leads as well, and then you can be the person that implement, say, their product, or you can be the go-to person, especially you have people that have passed certifications on a particular product to go in and do the work. Red Hat works like that. Amazon works like that. A lot of places work like that. So it's not just you out there looking for contracts. It's contracts being delivered to you uh, from the actual partnership. Through the partnership is one way, right? Then another way is you do utilize your certifications and actually go augment staff. One of the big ones that I was on was working with the state of Tennessee, where they were doing a cloud migration. They was actually doing a shift and lift. And so basically with that shift and lift, they came in and um, partnered with AWS, but their engineers didn't understand a lot of things. So there was training that had to be done. There was a specialization in networking, a specialization in understanding how to lift and shift to the cloud, or even in that case, do a refactor of the applications. So it's always something that can be done when it comes to consulting. And then sometimes people don't understand what DevSecOps is, or DevOps, or Agile. So there's always coaching that can be done where you can leverage coaching. So getting
Right.
certifications in, say, Safe Agile, getting your certifications in project management, where you can use that to your leverage under your consulting umbrella in order to get into different companies, or getting past work experience. And that's another thing: partner with people. Don't try to do it all by yourself in a vacuum. Go partner with a smaller business that's going after a contract, and they may not have the specialty that you have, and you could be on their team and still go under your company and get 1099, but now you're getting past performance. And you're also showing that you can partner with people and do the work. So those are just some little tidbits that, I have learned along the way. And then every experience that you have, always document it,
Mm-hmm.
always talk about it, put that information out there so people can find you versus
Facts.
you finding people.
No, fact. And the other part is, and I get this a lot, is a lot of big companies got to have minority participation, and
Correct.
but minorities in the cloud. Well, I take that back. Indians in the cloud is common. Black people in the cloud not
Yeah,
common. Go ahead.
yeah. Minorities are now primarily Indians, and they,
I've
whatever.
been fighting that, but that's a different
Yeah,
stream.
yeah,
that's
that's a
that's a
different
different
stream.
stream. But
Yeah,
but if
I
you
get it though.
yeah, but a lot of times too is they're actually asking for more minority women. So a lot of times you can combine with them because that they
Hmm.
actually kind of segregate that a little more. So
Yep.
so you can
So,
kind of jump on that. Go ahead, Tim.
yeah, so those are little tidbits with that. And when I say some conversations are one and done, some conversations are one and done. Some people are like, they're sending
Oh,
you an
five.
email. We got an urgent need, hiring tomorrow.
Oh, five.
Interview today, hire tomorrow.
Oh,
And so that urgent need, when I say it could be 3 to 500, it could be where they reached out to you for some specialty that they need. For example, somebody reached out to me and they needed Ansible platform,
okay.
right? And they were looking for somebody for Ansible platform, and they were paying 170 an hour,
Yep. Facts.
right? And so that interview process is a one and done
Mm-hmm.
type of situation. Some situations are, hey, um, my manager is going to call you and talk to you of the company that we're recruiting for to see if you're really interested, and then push you over there and then go from there.
Okay.
So it's really a a situation where you just got to keep your skill sharp
Mm-hmm.
and your resume sharp, and your ability and your skill ability to understand the customer needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the my advice to people is always, the job description is a customer need, and
Facts.
it's a need that they can't fulfill. So you have to look at it like, okay, the customer needs and wants these things. How do I get more information about the customer need? How do I find out the timeline, and how can I be of value to that customer, and maybe even provide value in other ways they didn't know they need?
Facts.
So in when you look at a job description, look at it from a customer standpoint and not necessarily from a job standpoint. And that gives you a segue inside of the actual interview process as well.
Facts. And I think that's part where you brought up was good in the chat was that's really reading that job description as an RFP, right? It's saying I need these, right? Then what value can you add to that RFP that's not listed because you have a background in that skill set in that area, agile, cyber, Oracle, AWS, So I think that's kind of like you said, where those two
Hmm.
go together. So
Yep. And then the other thing, when it comes to like staff augmentation, like, a win is a win. If you're only gonna be on there for a month, or if you're gonna be on there for 2 weeks or something like that, take the win. Take the build up process of, just getting, how to talk, how to ask, how to manage the project, how to do the work. Like, take the win and then go from there. I mean, I know sometimes it's the small wins are not really what you want. Everybody wants to hit the home run, but sometimes the small wins lead to the big wins, because somebody may be like, oh yeah, we worked for them for 2 weeks and they were excellent.
facts.
Look, I'm gonna recommend them for this project over here, and that project may be for a year,
Yeah.
right? And when I say they, I mean you and maybe someone else, or it may be just you, or what have you. But it could lead to other things. So, take the small wins just like you would like to take the big wins.
Yeah, facts. And when I first went to DOD, a guy told me, and I almost didn't take it. He said, "You're on a 6 month contract, but I know you're gonna do fine, and they're gonna extend it." I'm like, dude, and I did it. 10 years later, I was there because a lot of
Hmm.
times that And Tim knows this. When you get on those contracts, especially if you're on a big contract, they got other contracts on there. They got other divisions. DOD's got 10 other big divisions. So like
Mm-hmm.
if people like you, they'd be like, okay, we like him, send him over here because he's good. And two is then you
Right.
get to see what other projects are going on in there that you might have a skill set for. Or like you said, you might be able to join with somebody else to get something else, but you need to get in there and see what's going on too. So
Right. And then on another thing too is don't be afraid to bring in other people as well to help leverage some of the work that you are working with. But that's if you go in as a company, and if you trust them. So
facts, facts.
you're gonna have to do your own vetting on that. Everybody, everybody ain't for everyone. So you just gotta,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, you gotta work with that the best way you know how when it comes to that. So, but that's why I really, one of the things I really wanted to add when it comes to staff augmentation. What does it look like for you all to leverage your skills, leverage and those skills are technical and soft.
Facts. And like I
And
said,
yeah, don't underestimate the power of words.
oh,
Um, because you could probably get more with talking than you do proving. So
oh, yeah, especially
consider
in that consulting world. And I think that's what Gary was coming in. Once you get up there, right? You're
that.
talking about statement of works and just kind of resourcing, right? That's part of IT and cybersecurity, but you never talk about that, right? That's once you get it in skills. How do you build a team? How do you resource a team? And how do you build for the team? The first time I saw 15 people from Azure, it was like $2.5 million. I was like, oh my God, for 15 people, right? Because I never
Hmm.
seen those numbers, but when you see practice managers at 500, junior people at 250, supervisor,
Yep.
because if there's more than 10 people, you got to put a supervisor. You start adding those numbers. I'm like, oh, that's why they're so big. But until you see it and get in it, right, you won't know about
Hmm.
that. Go ahead and chime in on that,
Yeah,
Tim.
I've worked on projects literally like for like close to $1 billion, and they had multiple people on staff, and then at the end of it, once they got done with whatever they were gonna do with it, they're like, we don't want that. We're not gonna go that direction no more, and they scrapped the whole
Man,
project.
I seen $100 million get scrapped. I seen $100 million
Yeah,
get scrapped. I'm like, what?
yeah.
But it's common. But two, I was on a project and this guy, he was a project manager, super brilliant. He said, "This is a death march." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Man, this ain't gonna never come to fruition. They don't know what they're doing." I'm like, "Why are we doing it?" He said, "Because we gonna get paid for 3 years." I was like, "Well,
Right.
I salute the fight." He said, "They want it. I can't talk them out of it, so I'm just gonna ride it till it fall off." And he was right. About 3 years, we figured out this ain't gonna ever work. But everybody made a crazy amount of money.
Right. And that's the other thing too. Like I talked about this on my meetup the other night about how a lot of people don't realize that you can make good money in tech. On the infrastructure side, in the security side, infrastructure security, edge computing,
Oh yeah.
where we're talking jobs at 250, 270, 300, 350, and so forth. And I'm not saying that you don't need to have skills. You're gonna have to have skills, but that's also to say that like those jobs, people act like those jobs are only for executives
Oh
or they're not out there. Some of those jobs, like, and this is what people got to start looking at the titles for those positions because those are pay ranges when they're staff, when they're principal, senior staff, principal, distinguished, subject matter expert in this field on whatever, right? They already know that they gotta pay,
oh
and they
facts.
already know that it's out there. So some of them are willing to pay, depending on the project, depending on the desperation for it, depending on how long it's been open, depending on how long they've been looking for it. Like I've literally been on calls where people are like, this position been open for a year, so um, what you see on the job request as far as the salary range, you can nuke that, you can ignore that, and just tell us what you want. Because it's been open for a year,
Facts.
and so you tell us what you want. Now, here's the trick. That's a trick question, right? I'm tell you why it's a trick. It's a trick question because it now makes you think like how much you really worth.
Hmm.
And now you got to figure out how much are you really worth, and how much are you willing to do that job for. So I always tell people in my group, how much do you think your skills are really worth? Not looking at what the market is dictating, but how much do you think you're really worth in the market based upon your skill sets, based upon your personality, your knowledge, your ability to adapt, and so forth. What are your skill sets really worth? Right. And when you start looking at that, and right, like I challenge everybody, write down all your skill sets, and then number them with your skill sets. Once you write them all down, give them a range, like one through five. Give them a rate your skill set, 1 through 5. One being the worst and five being the best, right? Or you can do vice versa. And then once you do that, then the skills that are mediocre, right? What are you gonna do to get those skills up to where they need to be with the rest of your skill set? Why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that so that you can then take yourself and then say, okay, here's where in the interview, here's where I really shine at, and here's where I'm best at, and here's where I'm okay. And so when y'all start doing that and start figuring out how much you're really worth, yeah, you're gonna see some things change.
No, facts.
Yeah, I pulled some DevSecOps ones up the other day.
See, that's just the general stuff. So when I applied, I was going for L6. So, and like you said, these prices, oh, they were giving me, and then I went down to L5, and my offer was actually bigger than that. Like you said, because
Hmm.
they were having trouble trying to find those compliance resources. So I was solution architect with compliance. So they were kind of melding stuff together. So like you said, depending on your skill set and what you're working on. So like you said, those numbers are out here to get, and Amazon got a ton of people making that money, a ton
Hmm.
of people. So you just gotta get your skills up there so you can get it right. And like I said, L5, shit, I wasn't making that when I went down to L5. He said, "Oh, you close to L5?" I'm like, I'll do that because then he said a year I could go back try to get an L6 for the 309, and that's
Right,
without the negotiating. Like you said, that's standard. You can negotiate and get a little more than that.
right, right. And that's the other thing,
You fade out a little bit, Tim.
sometimes negotiate up after the interview. Sometimes, you got to prove yourself in order to get what you want. So that's
Facts.
what I've learned along the way is like sometimes I gotta be upfront and be like, yo, this is where we at, this is what we doing, and this is what I can do, and here's what I did in the interview, and here's what I see. So, but again, um, you have to be very sure and clear about what it is that you want and where you want to be at and what they can do, and the growth in that too, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to get a job where you don't grow.
Yeah. I always just feel when I interview with them, I'm just old and gregarious. I'm gonna call people and ask them what I want to know. Like, this dude good at that. I'm gonna link up with him and learn from him, right? Because
Right.
and 9 times out of 10, most people will help you as long as
Yep.
they got time. And a lot of times too is I tell them what do you don't want to do, and I'll do that for you while they training me, right? So I'm gonna try to take some off their plate while they're training me to give them time to train me. Because, like I say, people hate doing documentation and diagrams, and especially
Hmm.
from a compliance, you got to do all that paperwork, policies and procedures, and even if at a departmental level at those big companies, you got to have those. So a lot of times I got templates for those, and I'll do those, to help people out. But
Right. Let me see. I think I can bring this online. Let me see. Let me get back on the thingy here. Where's the stream? All right. Let me see. Let me see if I can share.
let me
Yeah,
see.
I can.
Can you?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Oh,
I posted this in my. I posted this in.
Go
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
just got activated. It's you good.
Okay. Yeah, I posted this in my Slack. I went and looked this up last night. You can see at 3:17 a.m. I was looking this up. So this was on levels FY. Can you see this on my screen? The too little?
Yeah, I can see. Well, now it's too big. No, I thought it was.
Okay, it's good. Okay, cool. So here, look.
Give me one. Give me one in chat. If you can read, I can read it. But go ahead. Give me one in chat if you can read it.
I'm looking on screen. It looks pretty clear.
It looks pretty clear.
Amazon, principal software developer. This person has been there 23 years, and you can look here and see how it's divided up: base pay, stock options, and then bonus. So 275 on the base pay, 463 on the stocks, and then 246 on a bonus. But the total compensation is 989,000.
You made my neck hurt, Tam. Go ahead.
Right. But you'll be online, and this is the issue I have with YouTube and all the stats. You'll be online, and people will tell you that you're not gonna make over $100,000 in tech, and you're not gonna do X, Y, and Z. Now, some of these are senior positions, but senior positions have changed now. Like sometimes I'll find senior positions, they'll say 5 to 7 years.
Oh,
some will say 10, some will say 10 years, and then some will say 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Some will say 15.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to do your due diligence and be on. Again, this is why I brought this up: is how much do you value yourself? How much do you think you're worth? And do you have the skill sets? And can you show up and show out for the money that you think you're worth or being offered to, right? But when you start seeing numbers like 480 for a base, and then again, this is West Coast, but again, are remote. Some jobs are not. Some jobs are hybrid. Some jobs that are hybrid pay 350. Some jobs that are remote pay 350. It depends on the company. Not everybody lives on the West Coast, and not everybody is offering on the West Coast 200,000. I just looked up a job here in Atlanta for Lockheed Martin, and a DevSecOps engineer at a staff level is 279. At a principal, it may be 300, it may be 320, but you got to do the research, and each project is different. One project may not have that big budget, and then another project may have a big budget. But again, you got to do your own research when you're talking to people. Even when you're doing the staff augmentation, you may work with one company, the same company, and you may be at a billing rate per person of 150 an hour per person, and they be like, well, with this particular project, we can't do the 150. Would you settle on 125? Because we can't get that kind of money out of this particular client. So you got to be able to know what your range is, what you're able to work in, and what you're not willing to sacrifice. Like, are you willing to sacrifice your margins for X, Y, and Z? Right. I just wanted to bring that up and show you, show people like these ain't my numbers. This is somebody else's numbers. Look, 10 years at Jane Street, 737 with a $437,000 bonus and 300K base. Go look up Jane Street. Go look up and see what Jane Street is. It sounds like it's a financial company in New York, probably in Manhattan somewhere, but look and see what it is.
That DevOps hot, man. That DevOps is hot. DevOps is hot, man. I need it.
Yeah.
But too, like Tim said too, and she brought a good point and I had somebody say that, well, we can only bill our client this, and I tell people, I'm old. I got a corner copy of skills, so I can work on multiple clients at the same time, man. They're like, oh, they don't even think about that. I'm like, dude, I can do Oracle over here. I can do AWS over there. And I can do, they're like, oh, we didn't think about that. I'm like, dude, I have more than one skill set. So you can build me out at multiple clients, right? Sometimes you got to reinforce that. And then they're like, okay, that makes sense. And I'm like, well, you got to give me more money for my skill set, right?
So, right. And then not to say that you know what I'm saying, you gotta, that's the other thing. You don't have to work with just one company.
Facts.
You can work with
Facts.
multiple companies, right?
Facts.
You may work with one company for 6 months and another company for 3 months, and you may charge one company 150. You may charge
Facts.
another company 125 because you just really want to get the money rolling in and the relationship, and then you may go up on them, the next time go around. Like it's different ways to get in here and do it, but you got to understand who you are as far as the like your skill set. How do you want to be perceived, what your brand is, and then go from there.
No, that's true. Quick question. Casual economist says, I never know if I should work on my financial skills or or computer skills. I'll be over the place when I study. Combine those guys, because if you look at Oracle ERP, they got a whole financial things you got to implement. Then you got to implement the financial skills, accounting for all that to tie together. There's a lot of financial companies that do computer work. Oracle has Oracle Financials. There's a ton of, so I will combine
Fintech.
those two. Go ahead. Yeah, fintech. Go ahead with that, Tim.
Yeah, so casual economists, I'm assuming you're talking about when we meet up on Saturdays and I talk about the finances and then the computer skills. They go hand in hand.
Facts.
They
Facts.
go hand in hand, right? And so when you get your job and you get offered a Roth 401k and an HSA, well, what are you going to do with it, right? So this is where your financial skills come into play and understanding just at a baseline, right? Can do you make enough money in that job where you can still pay all your bills, save up for your emergency fund, and max out your 401k? Now, to max out your 401k, I believe it's 1875 per month, which is 22.5 per year. So, can you put away basically $1,900 a month plus? I think if you max out your HSA, which is 3850, I think the number comes out to be 320 a month. So that's 160 per paycheck. So or 320 a month. So basically, can you miss out on $2,500 every month for maxing out your 401k and your HSA, right? So that's just it, right? Now, if you don't max it out and you say, okay, well, I'm gonna do a contribution to up to the match, and it's not the maximum, and then you decide to take the rest of that money and go buy some stocks and put it in a brokerage account. Well, what stocks are those? So you're gonna put into? And that's what I talk about on the show on Saturdays. But if you're talking about that, that's one way. But if you're talking about just you got good financial skills and you got computer skills and you want to get a job in that, I would be looking at any company really, especially anything around security, because your financial skills may be driven by compliance, or you may do good work with working with APIs or something of that nature. Just think about places like Charles Schwab, Trade Station, any of the SoFi, or any of those that you have to work with APIs, and working with those APIs, you end up building those APIs. So, and then how do you securely build those APIs and then work with stuff from there?
Yeah, like she said, can you clarify that, casuals? You trying to put those together? Like I said, I just kind of said what she said. If you put those, like, there's Oracle Financials, there's compliance. I'm in the compliance game, so a lot of times you're doing compliance on the financials of a business and how they're keeping track of that in a computer, right? Because there's a Graham Leach Bliley is one of the financial institutes compliance things you got to follow. GLBA, but clarify that, and we could chime in a little more on that. What else you got, Tim? I am winding down. I am tired. I got to work in the morning.
Oh, you sounding old.
I am, man. I'm winding down, man. I'm like, oh, it's Sunday. I gotta get up. Crazy thing is, I just go to my dining room table. I have to get in the car, but still, I'm like, I don't want to do that.
I feel you. No, that was it, man. I hope it was helpful.
Oh, great. You know you always
for your audience and so forth,
yeah,
and just to get an understanding with clarity and so forth on that.
Oh yeah, you always add value. That's why I wanted you to come up. You don't need to get on cam. I know who you are. So.
I got my hat on, it's
You all
Sunday.
good. We don't need. It's all good. Oh yeah, financial analyst. Yeah, I would combine those. I mean, like a financial analyst skills. Yeah, I would look up GLBA. I'll put that in the chat.
Oh yeah, casual economists. I talked about this on the show yesterday. Um, go look at In fact, you can go look at the show from yesterday. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But
Nice.
on the show yesterday, I talked about working at places like FINRA, like working at financial institutions under the DevSecOps, under compliance and so forth and so on. Just looking at those things will help you. But yeah, go to FINRA. This is another one I talked about this on the show too that people miss out on. Have you heard about New York Life laying off or Fidelity laying off?
That's a good point.
You ain't heard nothing about New York Life or Mass Mutual having any types of layoffs.
That's a good point.
And so when I look at insurance companies, I'm like, man, they might be the lick for
Might be.
for the true test of time as far as working, right? Because I hadn't heard nothing about Fidelity having any layoffs. I hadn't heard nothing about Mass Mutual having layoffs, New York Life having layoffs. I haven't heard anything of that nature. And so when you go look at those companies, just at a at 100,000 foot view, right? You look at that company, think about all the APIs that they have, all the security and PII that they got to collect,
Facts.
how much data they collect, how do they use AI, how do they do their recommendations, and then you start to look at them as you start to look more at them like a tech company than an insurance company.
No, that's true. Let's see. Let's switch. And like you said, those old companies, they solid as a rock, man, because they don't
Yeah,
overhire. They're not like AW. They gonna hire too many people. They just solid. So
yeah.
I think, like you said, they seem old and boring, but they solid though.
That's the time.
Casual, I put that in the chat. Graham Leach Bliley, that's the requires financial institution and companies that offer financial products, loans, blah blah blah. That's the security compliance banks have to use. So I will look in that because I think that might go nice with your financial background. And I put that actually in a did. It brought up a couple $150,000 jobs when you add those together. So check out that Graham Leach Bliley. I put that in the chat. So check that out. We're linked up on LinkedIn. If you want to dig into that more, just let me know. You got anything else, Tam, before I shut it down? I got to take a nap. I'm old.
No, I would just want to look up the benefits for Mass Mutual. Like, I
Okay.
just want to look at their benefits. Hold on, I'm gonna share my screen real
No,
quick,
that's cool.
and then we out of here.
That's cool. Ain't no boring. No problemo.
So here's the
Hold on.
benefits
Let me get it
for.
up there. Let me get it up there.
Okay,
It's up there. It's up there.
all right. So here's their benefits. They give you a cash balance pension. You get a 401k and a non-qualified thrift plan. That's their retirement program. And then they got health care and welfare benefits, adoption, fertility, dependent disability, HSA, FSA, dental, vision, medical. And then they got additional benefits down here with maternity, professional designation reimbursement, agent assistant program, consumer medical, and all light retiree health solutions. And then compensation, commissions, and this is just their plan. This ain't like if you're an agent or not. This is just their plan. But then they come down here and they're just showing like average earnings and so forth. And I think this is for their financial folks for their average earnings. But go check out Mass Mutual and see what kind of jobs Mass Mutual has. and then start looking at their benefits and going from there. And they break it down. I think Mass Mutual breaks their stuff down into career, into agents, and then corporate. I would go on the corporate if you want to look up their stuff. But that's just a food for thought. You have to, but just food for thought.
No, like this. Oh yeah, thanks for joining, Juan. Yeah, check out the replay. But yeah, casual, check that out. Tim gave you some info. I gave you some info. I'm sure either one of us will be, or both of us will be glad to help you if you got any more additional information. Once again, I do GRC, and Graham Leach Bliley is kind of one of those from a auditing standpoint. And with your background, you could probably get into auditing as one of your options. So just get your foot in the door, and you can always pivot to DevSecOps. So with a bigger pay scale, you got to get in there first. Go ahead, Ted.
Or you could do a couple of things. You can go get your Series 65 if you want.
It's funny. I looked at the job. They asked you if you were doing Series 7s. I never heard of 66 or 65. Those were both listed in the jobs I looked up. I was like, okay, yeah, I know their business. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 65 is what I was studying for.
Okay, I never heard. I just always heard of 7.
The 65 was what I was studying for, and need to get back to it. I was just talking to my business partner about it earlier, about doing the 65, and when he was taking his test, because they just changed the exam, so I need to go order some stuff now so I can get back to it and whatnot. But yeah, the 65, once you pass it, it automatically makes you an accredited investor. So that's just another way.
Okay.
To become an accredited investor.
Yeah, I need to dig into that. I wasn't hip to that. Like I said, I learned something today.
That's all right. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to learn something new every day.
A little bit every day. I'm out.
All right.
Thanks for joining, Tim. I appreciate it. I know you was going to drop gems as always. Everybody, have a nice week. Let's get it. I'm out. Everybody have a great day. Start off Monday strong, everybody. Start off Monday strong. I'm out.